So, we all know that humanity kind of sucks. We know this for a number of different reasons, including and not limited to the fact that it's 2020 and we haven't solved world hunger or achieved world peace. And America still thinks it's the greatest, even though they cause most of the problems that they claim to have fixed and did not actually fix them. To be fair, America is the land of opportunity and freedom. But maybe that's the problem. People are just too free. When nothing is stopping you, you go for it, no matter how bad an idea it is. For example, I have a box of chocolate right here, and I intend to eat all of it before the end of the day. Because why not? Why not sit on my couch and watch Netflix all day while I'm at home? It doesn't help me grow. It doesn't help my nation in any way. But I'm free to do it, so I will, and you can't stop me. Dictatorships may be limiting in the way of personal freedoms, but is that really a bad thing? People would be less likely to create a toilet paper shortage because they wouldn't have the freedom to just grab everything off the shelf. It would be regulated more from the beginning. Splendid idea. In 1929, the Great Depression struck and devastated economies across the globe. And while we would love to believe that the Depression ended with Roosevelt's efforts in the United States, which I would like to point out, those got a little authoritarian in their application. But the point is that the Depression actually ended with the beginning of World War II. And it is worth noting that Germany was one of the first nations to overcome the Depression thanks to the policies and governance of none other than Adolf Hitler. When you think of a dictator, there are a few names that come to mind, and Hitler is one of them. And though we all know he did terrible things, he did a bit of good for the German people. He gave them back their pride after their defeat in the First World War. He implemented Mother's Day, which is still celebrated and is the only reason why some people ever talk to their mothers. He helped restore the German economy. Another name that will come to mind is Stalin. Now, there is a man who helped the economy. Russia went from the wooden plow to rocket ships like that. And high school students still scoff at the idea of a 5-year plan. Those uncultured swine. There were people who disagreed with his methods and would still say that he was cruel to the people. But Russia became a superpower, a global superpower, that held the United States of America in a standoff for about 45 years. Now I know that this was not all done within Stalin's time, but he set down the groundwork. And if you can go from small wooden farm plows to rocket engines as quickly as Russia did, you're doing something right. Yes, Stalin was strict and limited freedoms for the people, but he was justified by the growth of the nation, which eventually led to a better quality of life for all Russians. They are still not behind us. Now they are caught up with the rest of the globe, not using wooden plows. And have you seen Stalin's mustache? Indulge me for a moment as I delve into the realm of fiction. Now, if you are not knowledgeable in the realm of the Star Wars extended universe or anything Star Wars, I do not blame you. You definitely have better things to do with your time, but I don't. So allow me to introduce you to the history of the Sith. The Sith were an organization which focused on wielding power and generally ruling the universe. They did this by having one leader, the Sith Lord, who was like a dictator, and had a few apprentices who one day one of them would surpass them, and then they would take over as the ruler, so you had a steadily working line of dictators who were better than the last, because they all built up from the last one and progressed from that one so that they could defeat the past leader. This worked pretty well. They usually had great wealth, society was efficient, expansion was a given. As long as you followed the Sith Lord's word as law, you had a pretty good quality of life and protection from any other danger. However, the Sith became less awesome, efficient, a lot of things, when they banded together to form the Brotherhood of the Sith, a society where everyone was equal and had an equal say in what happened. This was inefficient. Without one clear absolute leader, there was so much confusion and infighting. They lost the war they were currently fighting, and would have gone extinct if not for the intelligence of one Sith Lord, Darth Bane. So really, the Sith Empire, if it hadn't become a Sith democracy, it would have continued to be one of the greatest powers in the universe, and instead it was diminished to a party of 2 people and cost thousands of lives. In the more well-known section of Star Wars history, the Democratic Republic is very corrupt, and it takes so long to decide things that 2 peacekeepers, a 14-year-old girl with her entourage, and a 9-year-old child, were able to take out a planet-wide military-grade blockade, while a government with the resources of the entire galaxy had a lunch break. On top of that, a war between the Republic and the Separatists waged for 5 years, killing millions of innocents, destroying countless worlds, and there was a huge financial crisis as the banks had gone bankrupt, and it was only the ending of the war, when the Empire took over, that unified millions of planets and created hundreds of jobs, as well as promoting art and expanding its education system to all worlds, not just those that were close to the central planets and the central capital. That's the word I'm looking for, capital. The entire war was ended by the taking over by the Empire, and they expanded education, created job opportunities, and avoided what seemed to be an inevitable depression. If you aren't a Star Wars fan, have no fear, I am a nerd of many interests. Most of the governments in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings were monarchies, which is not the same as a dictatorship, but stay with me for a moment. Sauron could be seen as a dictator. Just saying. Dictator. And he may have been the villain of the book, but was he that bad? He empowered an entire race that was discriminated against, regardless of the fact that he also created that race, but still, everyone else hated them. All of the peoples of Middle-earth that were rejected because their ancestors had made a mistake in the past. I'm thinking of the people who were the men of that world, who were not the men of the West, who may have accidentally worshipped the devil for a little while, and now everybody hates them. They were accepted in Mordor. And I don't want to say that, the Fellowship of the Ring was wrong, but just saying. Just saying. But to the point, he created unity across different races, and job opportunities for those that the elves, dwarves, and men of the West would refuse to employ. Most importantly, we hear that the orcs say, meat is back on the menu, implying that they know what a menu is, and therefore there must be restaurants in Mordor. So, Sauron helped create business, and kept the economy growing as well as feeding his people. He didn't put guns over butter. He kept his realm militarized and fed with the blood of his enemies. So really, if Sauron had taken over Middle-earth, he would have made life better for many people. During the raiding of the Shire, we see that the Shire goes from a lazy land with a hierarchy and a class system that is determined by birth, to efficient enterprise where all the hobbits are enslaved equally. Now don't worry, we are returning to the reality now, so let me present you with a situation. Which would you choose? Increased protection provided by your government, which is ruled by your one decisive dictator, in exchange for a little less privacy. Or in a land of freedom where you can get shot in the Denny's parking lot because everyone and anyone is allowed to have a gun and your insurance won't even cover your healthcare anyway, so you're probably gonna die. Sound fun? Or maybe you'd rather live in that same land of freedom where the idiots next door, who know nothing about politics, vote for an orange man with tiny hands and an even smaller vocabulary, who regularly violates the laws of his own nation which he is now leading, because they wouldn't want a woman in office. Unimaginable. Because they have the freedom to do that. And yes, said person that they voted in does in fact break the law every time he signs documents. White House documents are required to be preserved under the Presidential Records Act, but the president has a nasty habit of tearing them up and throwing them out. So there's a team of people whose sole job is to tape them back together. Now, isn't that a great way to spend tax dollars and infinite amounts of Scotch tape? No, it's not. You could have a government that is quick, decisive, beneficial, and doesn't have to go through a Senate of people who weren't even elected anyway. Kind of like already having a group of dictators that can say, no, we don't want that law. It doesn't benefit us. It's gone. We didn't elect you. If the government controls output and production, there would be way less useless items made and bought, thrown out, and then end up in a landfill or ocean and destroy our planet. Yes, I did just pull the economy card. If the government controls resources and their distribution, we also wouldn't have millionaires who have as many purses that they will never use as I have skin cells, and a lot more people who can afford to live. We would also have a lot less people who can't find toilet paper because everyone panicked over a disease virus that does not have symptoms that would lead one to need copious amounts of toilet paper. Humans are the worst. As I stated at the beginning of this rant, when presented with a rigid structure, students tend to excel and graduate. But when placed at home, with limited oversight, we end up with limited productivity and sarcastic rants about how dictators are the best, and in the place of professional-sounding essays, we do this. In a dictatorship, I wouldn't be allowed to make the sarcastic rant and would have to have used this time that I used being salty for this assignment to do something more productive that could have helped push humanity forward into the future. But no, I watched YouTube videos about nothing and used my freedom of speech on how to comment on how cute a cat was, while someone else used their freedom of speech to make not nice comments about the lovely woman in the video. Fun times. Freedom of speech. It's the best. Moral of the story: the seemingly limiting tactics of dictators are indefinitely justified when they result in a society that is better for all citizens and allows for growth. Though regulations may be a bit more strict, citizens can grow and learn instead of playing PS4 all day, and society would be better for it. And if your dictator of choice, your dictator who most likely declared themselves in charge because no one could oppose them, much like an older sibling when parents go out for the night, aspires to take over the world and create a unified global regime that spans generations. That's okay, so long as it leads to the enlightenment of humanity and doesn't cause us to go extinct. Remember, kids, that means all of those within society, not just straight rich white men. In conclusion, the world needs more dictators. Sauron and the Sith were the good guys, and Stalin had a great mustache, and really, humans are the worst. Thank you for listening to my rant. Have a lovely day. See you later.